are literally close to the century mark when it comes to petrol and diesel in India. In various cities, petrol and diesel continue to pinch pockets. The high prices is now being reflected in the wholesale price index as well, which has jumped for the month of January compared to the month of December. Now, there is a very clear excuse at hand because crude has in fact been rising, touching $63 per barrel just today. Confluence of factors, some stress in the Middle East, the hope that Biden's stimulus package will rev up the world economy as well, and more unlocking as COVID-19 will hopefully come under control, has given rise to crude prices the world over. And of course, India imports 80% of the crude. So you must have heard this argument several times over coming in from government agencies that, hey, we import most of our crude. If international crude prices are rising, what can we do but pass it on? India is supposed to have a free market system when it comes to crude. That means you and me pay in tandem with how the crude prices increase. But that's not entirely true, and nor is it the whole picture. Because when crude prices were relatively low, especially at the start of COVID-19, the government kept increasing the amount of tax they took. And now this tax is in two parts. While the central government takes excise duty, state governments take VAT. And both central and state governments found some relief when the rest of tax revenues were coming down due to COVID-19 from increasing fuel prices. Now, as the COVID-19 threat has receded, crude prices have once again gone up. But just as an example, in 2019, if for 1 litre, 47% of the price of that litre was in taxes, now it is over 60%. So somewhere the relief has to come from center and state. We're going to be discussing why central and state governments are not feeling the pinch, except for Assam, which has realized that it's going to the polls, so they better give some relief. Will we need to wait for the next elections for that? But before that, let me go across to my colleague Ruchi Bhatia, who is putting in perspective how oil is on the boil.
Crude is on the boil and oil prices rose to the highest in more than a year on the tensions in Middle East and hopes of more US stimulus as well as easing of the coronavirus-related lockdown that will support crude prices even further. But that may not bode very well for the Indian economy. In fact, if you look at diesel and petrol prices, they have continued their upward trajectory, their upward momentum, and petrol prices and diesel prices are inching to fresh new highs in the country. Remember, this is all thanks to a large part of it really going into the state and the central government's kitty as well. In fact, in Mumbai, if you look at the petrol prices, closer to 95 rupees 21 paisa per litre for petrol in Mumbai, and for diesel almost 86 rupees and 4 paisa per litre. In fact, Rajasthan, that levies the highest VAT on fuel in the country, their petrol prices are now inching closer to 100 rupees per litre. But as I said, a large part of it really goes into the central governments and the state government's kitty. In fact, if you look at the anatomy of fuel prices, petrol, almost 32 rupees of what you pay goes as excise duty. In the central government's kitty, almost 19 rupees as VAT in the state government's kitty, and about 3 rupees 69 paisa in terms of dealer commissions that go to the dealers. As far as diesel is concerned, once again about 31 rupees 89 paisa that goes in the central government's kitty, about 11 rupees and 20 paisa as VAT in the state government's kitty. And it's highly unlikely that people like you and I are going to get relief anytime soon, because the oil minister in the Rajya Sabha just last week said that the government does not plan to cut taxes on fuel prices anytime soon. Having said that, if you look at the state governments, we're seeing closer to the election season, Assam has undertaken a 5 rupee cut, and there is a likelihood that many more states, depending on their political compulsions, may take this decision. But if you look at the central governments, last year they were able to raise about 2,24,000 crores from fuel excise collections alone. This year the target is for, in fact, next fiscal year for FY22 is about 1.98 lakh crore rupees. So of course there is a headroom, but when exactly will the government look to cut excise duty, and will they do it in tandem with the state governments to provide more relief to consumers, is something that we will have to wait and watch out for.
Why should it take political compulsions to reduce taxes on fuel prices? That's really the big question that must be answered. If in fact it is a free market open mechanism which is being used, why should we have to wait for an election in a state for that state to get relief, or maybe a general election for the country to get relief, or for opposition parties to make enough of a noise? Or is it that we're waiting for social media trends to be active on this? What are we really waiting for? Because the impact is clear to see. As fuel prices continue to go up, it's not going to hit just the rich and the middle class or those who are driving their own vehicles. Transportation costs are going to go up, and it is going to have a trickle-down effect on inflation at all ends and all levels, coming at a time when already you have incomes that have been hit. So why does the government feel that it's okay to give that boost to inflation, or what are they waiting for is the question. To go across on this, I'm joined now by R.S. Sharma. He's the former CMD of ONGC. Madhavan Narayanan, a senior journalist, joins us on the show this evening, as does Bal Malkit Singh. He's the chairman, core committee of the All India Motor Transport Congress. So welcome to all of you, and thank you for speaking with us today. Mr. Sharma, I just want your perspective, because it's almost with a sense of deja vu that I talk about this today. Over the last year and a half, we've taken up this issue of rising fuel prices quite often, but there has been no respite, no cognizance even from the powers that be, that this is really hampering and pinching people. It seems to be now status quo to extract as much revenue as possible from the petrol pump.
Yeah, that's correct, Tamanna. You would have noticed that after the lockdown, when this international oil prices had crashed, and here the petrol, diesel, they are aligned to import parity price of these products only. And when there was a sudden slump in the international prices, the benefit did not get passed on to the consumer. Instead, government had decided to increase the central excise duty on petrol and diesel. I'm not remembering specifically 11 rupees or 30 rupees, that was per liter. The increase was done. And as slowly we find that crude prices are moving up, so government has taken a call, because they have so many social security schemes, vaccination drive, health management. They are not in a position to give that relaxation in the excise duty increase that had been done. So as a result, we find the product prices have gone to all-time high. Even at $63 or $60 plus a barrel for the Brent crude, the prices today are much higher than what they used to be at $100 a barrel international prices. Of course, that time the regime was different, the mechanism itself was different. Let me not spend time to draw that comparison between that regime and this regime, but the fact is, so when the government has raised the duties, they did not realize that prices will start moving up. When the prices start moving up, then saying that we are not in a position to reduce the levies. So as a result, the cascading effect that has come, the inflation rate is also going to go up. We have Mr. Singh here who represents the transport sector. We know that the diesel prices moving up will have immediate impact on the inflation and the retail prices going up. So that aspect has to be seen. We find there's on the media, there's this issue gets highlighted, but there's not much reaction from the public anyway. And government says they don't have any options. So that is the state of affairs as of now.
Yeah, which is why I was keen to speak with Mr. Singh today on the show, because often there is this misnomer that increase in fuel prices, petrol, diesel prices, impact the middle class, the upper middle class, or actually the small percentage of Indians who own their own cars, two-wheelers, etc.? If they pay a little more, so what? If the SUV and luxury car owners who have diesel engines, if they pay more, so what? And yes, I would have agreed to that if that was the only impact. If they pay more, so what? But that's not just the case, is it, Mr. Singh? Can you explain to us what it really means and what the impact is as we have seen these fuel prices, inching up? Today, in fact, has been a hike for 7th day in a row.
Thank you, Tamanna, for calling me on your show. And I will be representing the road transport sector. That is the more than 1 crore vehicle owners and the 20 crore people associated with this trade. It is the all-time high, the diesel prices consecutively 7th day in a row. It has the cascading effect. Diesel is the major component in our operational cost. It constitutes around 65% of our operational cost. And it is but natural when the diesel prices goes up, we are left with no other alternative but to pass on to our customers, which will be passing on to the consumer. So this will lead to the inflation. Secondly, due to the slowdown, due to the lockdown and pandemic, the business is not yet settled. Ideal time of our vehicle has increased. Demand and supply are not been matched. So on behalf of the road transport sector, we have we are writing to the government since last 2 months that gives some relief to this sector by reducing the excise duty, and state should reduce the VAT taxes to give some relief to this sector, which is on the deathbed, provide oxygen to this, so that if this sector collapses, the economy of the country will collapse. Economy depend upon our wheels. If the wheel moves,
Mr. Singh,
the economy
why is
moves.
no one listening to you?
Now, at last,
yes. Mr. Singh, I want to ask you a follow-up. Why is no one listening to you? Have you made representations to the government? There were reports that you're planning to go on strike. Why do you think this is having no impact today?
We have given sufficient time to the government to address our issues. At last, we have called the emergent meeting on Saturday, in which there was a resentment that immediately we should suspend our operations. We should stop our vehicles plying on the roads. But still, we have given the 14 days ultimatum to the government, which has been sent today, with a request to reduce the excise duty, advisory to the state to reduce the VAT taxes. There should be a uniformity of the diesel prices all across the country. And there should be a quarterly review of the fuel prices, not on a daily basis. And we have some other issues related to the e-way bill, GST, scrapping policy, etc., etc. And if there is no response, positive response from the government, we'll be compelled to shut down our operations in next month, by start of next month.
Madhavan, you have tracked the several ups and downs when it comes to protests over fuel prices. You would remember in the UPA government, especially UPA 2, high fuel prices was a major political issue. Now, why do you see the lack of noise about this? Is it just that the opposition is not being able to drum up enough support? Because there are piecemeal, protests, there are statements being put out, there are press conferences, but somehow it has not become a major groundswell of anger or an agitation or build enough pressure for the government to respond to it.
Good question, Tamanna, but I want to bring out the context better because it automatically explains a lot of things. Mr. Narendra Modi, when he became Prime Minister, had probably the best honeymoon possibility. The UPA government saw Brent prices crossing $110, or even more, I think. So, luckily for Mr. Modi, when he came to power, it came down to 1/3 of the level in UPA level. So, to that extent, Mr. Modi has had a wonderful time because he could make it out as if the prices were coming down on his work, whereas actually it was all the global prices. So that brings us to the next question. If that was an opportunity, a window of opportunity, why wasn't it utilized properly? And the answer is that we had the NPA problem in banking, and therefore everybody was letting things go by. And also there was this big belief that economics is not political enough an issue till the farmers' protest happened. This is the context in which we are talking. But having said that, I must say we might still have a time bomb ticking, because I do believe that inflation is a politically more emotive issue than unemployment. So there is this whole issue of uh, cost push inflation that is looming large, because even if it is only minor, it has a huge headline factor. That is what Rahul Gandhi is trying to exploit today. So I must say, if I was Narendra Modi or Nirmala Sitharaman, I would be worried about what it will do to elections. Having said that, let us remember two things. That cigarettes used to be the whipping boy of the tax administrators in the 70s and 1980s. That's shifted to petrol now. It has reached atrocious levels, as your colleague Ruchi Bhatia pointed it out very well statistically. But the key point is that India's tax to GDP ratio is so low. It is that when incomes go up, the taxes don't go up as much as taxes coming down when the incomes come down. So we've had COVID-19 and a GDP shrinkage, and the tax to GDP ratio has sunk to 9.8% or so, which is the lowest
Yeah,
in
but
10 years.
Madhavan, I'm sorry, Madhavan, I must come in. Madhavan, I must come into this analogy to cigarettes. It's not the same thing, because I can choose to quit smoking. Can I choose to not have any impact of petrol, diesel hikes on me, even if I don't drive a car? Every person, every child, in fact, will also be hit by high inflation.
I couldn't agree with you more, Tamanna, but I'm just trying to explain why the government is doing this. Because the poor don't understand that they are also hit by petrol and diesel price hike, except through a knock-on effect. It doesn't affect them directly, but if Mr. Singh tomorrow has a petrol price hike, he will pass it on to the trucks, which will be passed on to the vegetables that you buy. So it does have a knock-on effect, but it is not politically as emotive till it becomes an onion price hike. That's what I'm trying to tell you. But it's also true, as you very rightly
politics
said.
have also changed. Maybe politics have also changed.
It has.
Yeah,
and
maybe
that
we have
also,
to agree and admit to the fact that the politics of today and the issues that are emotive have also changed.
Absolutely, that have been. But my point to you, Tamanna, is that it may not stay that way very long, because the honeymoon of the Brent prices is over. Inflation may be back on the table as a political issue sooner than you think. Just as we didn't expect the farmers' protest to happen, and it suddenly exploded on us, we might have a same one on LPG prices. Please remember, Mamata Banerjee came to power in Bengal, and one of the issues she raked up was LPG prices. So I'm not saying it is not. It is heading there. It may not head there as fast as you might want or you might think, but it is getting there. But what I'm trying to tell you is that because this is the whipping boy, and because we had this whole GST shift over, this is like the last bastion of the easy whipping boys of taxation. So unless the government really gets on the gas and tries to improve the tax, it's a low hanging. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Absolutely, it's low hanging fruit.
Let me complete. Let me complete.
Absolutely, RS Sharma. No, absolutely point. Yes.
If the government focuses on tax to GDP ratio in a truly meaningful way, it wouldn't have to resort to petrol price hike. So what we are witnessing is a lazy tax administration. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Yes, absolutely. Point taken. Point taken. The tax to GDP ratio issue is a long-standing chronic problem. And yes, it has to be resolved without resorting to low-hanging fruit. But I want to understand the the machinery that moves the prices, and no one better to understand that from than Mr. R.S. Sharma. Now, officially on the face of it, we have market-linked, market-driven prices, and your oil marketing companies make their decision on a daily basis, but usually in tandem on when they want to hike prices. Mr. Sharma, how does the mechanism actually work, and how does it tie into political events? Like we saw in Assam before the elections, an announcement made that we are cutting by 5 rupees. So at the end of the day, what kind of an impact does political pressure or those political decisions have on the final action on fuel prices?
You see, the mechanism that has been announced, that these prices are deregulated and they are benchmarked to international import parity prices. That is the mechanism that has been put out, and the government keeps saying it is working precisely according to that only. These are primarily three oil marketing companies: IOC, HPC, BPC. These are the companies. They have the they have sort of monopoly on the this product sales and the retail outlets they have. So these companies, please remember, they are also owned by the government. So government say they do not interfere, but all these companies in the boards, they have government nominee directors. And what I can say that though there's no direct intervention, but it is always possible to have that indirect intervention through the nominee directors on the boards of these companies, and through also the mechanism that PPAC is a cell in the Petroleum Ministry. They monitor that how these the companies, they do the announcements, because the price increase are announced by all the three companies simultaneously. So I know for sure there's a mechanism. There are senior management of these companies, they meet in the evening, they take a call, and accordingly the announcement is done. But whether these companies have the liberty to do absolutely at their own, or there's a tacit approval, guidance, or directives they might be getting from the administrative ministry or from elsewhere, that I'm not in a position to say. But the fact is, how come all the prices are moved together by all the three companies?
Let me stick my neck out and say it. Absolutely, Mr. Sharma. Let me stick my neck out and say it. It would be childlike and foolish to think that it was all a big coincidence. That as soon as there are any major elections, all oil marketing companies go hands off. The last festive season, in fact, was a good example. During the festive season, there were no hikes. So there is a tacit understanding somewhere or the other. The power does rest with centre and state governments to cut prices. Unfortunately, the discourse and the debate has become where centre tells state, why don't you cut prices and cut your VAT, because it's ad valorem, it adds on even more, and state government saying, hey, you're the one with more funds and resources, why don't you cut prices? And that's where this entire debate has gone and got stuck. I want to go across to Mr. Singh before we wrap this conversation to get a sense of what is coming. Mr. Singh, has your patience run out?
Definitely. The patience have run out. Since last 1 year, the diesel prices has been increased approximately by 21 rupees 14 paise. And average it comes out to 76 per liter. And we are unable to absorb this hike. And there is a lot of resentment on the ground. That is why the decision has been taken that if no corrective action has been taken by the government, and as well as for the state government, will be compelled to stop our operation from March, because we are unable to have this burden, because 85% of our small road transport operator whose livelihood is for 1 to 5 acres will be out of this business, and unemployment will increase, and the patience is running out. As a responsible transport association, we have taken the call and hope the better sense prevails with the government by taking the corrective measure by reducing the excise duty and advisory to the state to reduce the VAT taxes and give relief to this sector and to the 20 crore people associated with this state and to the 130 crore people of this country.
Absolutely. It shouldn't be a political issue, frankly. It's just good governance to start pulling back. If you could even understand that during COVID-19, when tax revenues were down, you needed money to, for the welfare of the people, and you used that opportunity to get more and more revenues through excise, through VAT from center and state. But now what? Now as things are improving, you need to ease off the pressure as well. Let's hope better sense does prevail. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us on the lead story this evening on the India Development Debate.